Alright, so looky here what I got in the mail today. This bad guy. So I'm going to do an unboxing and review of this Lord Zedd figure. This is one of the first Lightning Collection figures from Hasbro. Pretty excited to check this guy out. This is the first Lord Zedd figure we've gotten since the 2015 Legacy release from Bandai. Looking at the package now, you can see he comes with his staff. He's got little bombs that he uses to make the monsters grow. Also looks like he comes with some extra hand poses. Anyways, we're going to take a look at him in a moment. First, let's take a look at the box. We've got the Power Rangers Lightning Collection Mighty Morphin Lord Zedd. Hasbro logo. We got this sweet artwork over here of Lord Zedd. Typical warning, choking hazard, ages 4 and up. Lord Zedd's artwork continues onto the side. We have in this gray color the actual Mighty Morphin logo, since that's the season he was from. On the back, we've got this artwork. Oh yeah, he comes with this little electric, fiery, whatever you want to call that, battle attachment. So that's in the package somewhere. I don't really see it. I think it's over here, kind of hidden behind the face. So anyways, on the back, we have multiple languages of the warnings. We've got some pieces may require additional support, certain poses require, yeah, that's Spanish and some other languages. Includes figure and 5 accessories, Hasbro logo, and the copyright information. On the very bottom of the box, we have even more information and copyrights and all that fun stuff that I'm not going to read. And the other side, we have, again, that imagery of Lord Zedd. On the top, it's just red, fitting for Lord Zedd, and it's got this little tag for them to hang it on the shelf. Alright, so now let's unbox this guy. So the first thing I notice is underneath the figure we've got this lightning bolt texture. That's kind of cool. And onto the figure himself. Let's go ahead and pop him out. First thing I notice off the bat is that his staff is a solid gray, which, you know, it is a solid gray in the show, but it's not painted. It's just a plastic gray. It's not a painted gray. As you can clearly see, this is more of a chrome painted gray. So there's a slight difference in that, not huge, and honestly I think it's fine. Just a quick observation. Interesting to note, this little bomb is actually painted that shiny metallic-y silver, again, whereas this is not. So interesting that they painted this, but not this. This is nice and spongy and rubbery. I'm sure so you can fit it around the staff and do cool things with it. So these are the additional hands he comes with. So this one looks like it's like maybe a staff holding position. Interesting that there is a joint actually on this little piece here that bends. So that's interesting. Same thing over here. This is a clenched fist. Now, some folks commented about being careful with these tubes when you take it out of the package. I wasn't all the most gentle, although it could have been a lot more rough, and they seem to still be attached, so that doesn't seem to be an issue. Looking at how they're attached, they seem to be going inside of the mold. They're very flimsy and rubbery. They're not stiff at all. So that'll probably be good for poses. And this is actually the first Lord Zedd figure that we've ever gotten that has real tubes. So that's pretty cool. neat touch. The first thing that I noticed, though, when I take this out of the package, is this is probably the most detailed Power Ranger figure I've ever seen. And I have been a collector of Power Rangers since 1993. So, yeah. I mean, just looking at these muscles in the cracks and the crevices, how you got this painted different gradients of the like the dark red and stuff around the muscles. I've never seen that on a Power Ranger figure ever, and that's actually really show accurate. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, this guy is. Ooh, this is interesting. I don't know if you can see this, but the paint is already chipped right here and right here. So, and there's a little splotch of gray here that should not be there. And you know, this is something that I've heard a lot with Hasbro figures, and I actually noticed on my review of the main line of the basic figures for Beast Morphers. Hasbro figures have a lot more paint and detail than the Bandai figures ever had. I mean, there's a lot of paint apps and things on these that the Bandai figures just never even had paint there. However, sometimes the accurateness of where they get the paint, or things may chip, or they may get a blotch somewhere, that seems to be more common than it was with Bandai. So you get more paint, and I overall think they're better figures by far, but just something to notice that there are some quality issues there. So anyways, looking at this Lord Zedd figure, let's look at the articulation. We've got that cool brain texture up at the top, silver chrome dome. We've got the famous Z. His head goes up and down, and obviously side to side. Not full 360, that's as far as it turns. So if you want to make his head go backwards, I'm lying to you. It actually does go backwards. Okay, so apparently I was getting his little jaw stuck on on this piece. So if you lift it up more, it will turn 360 and go all the way around. You just gotta lift it up more. Anyways, so the chest moves kind of up and down. Man, these things are really, like, loose. But, I mean, they seem to me they're pretty good. It's just, like, they're only attached here and down here. Interesting. All right, so arms, they seem to move up. And, oh, this is interesting, joint here, so up and out. We've never had that joint on a Bandai figure. That's, yeah, wow, it comes out back here too. See that piece? Huh, that's different. So anyways, we've got that motion. If we wanted to turn it, we could make his arm go all the way up. And again, these tubes are moving along with it pretty well, giving him some pretty good motion, while also having these screen accurate tubes. It's kind of weird having them on a figure. I'm not used to a figure having these tubes, but that's how Lord Zedd is in the show, so that's pretty cool. Elbow joint, let's see here, he bends his elbow, and that's as far as it bends. It's got kind of a top and a bottom little joints that bend in the elbow. The wrists, as we saw earlier, they can kind of bend inward and bend outward. They've got that motion, and they turn. Let me see how hard it is to take this off. So that's in there pretty good. And, ooh, interesting fact, when you take the hand off, this is loose. I don't really like that. So I'm going to put that back on and put the hand back in here very carefully, trying not to break anything. All right, so that's back in. Not too bad. So there's the arm. Let's see. This is kind of a weird ball joint. How did I have this earlier to get it? There we go. Back down. Again, this arm probably does all the same stuff. Oh, and there's a turn here. It turns in this area. I did not mention that on the other arm, I don't think. So yeah. This hand is the kind of like probably the bomb clutching hand, if I had to guess. Let's see if the bomb fits here. Perfect. Yep. So there's Lord Zedd holding his bomb, about ready to throw it, make his monster grow. That's pretty cool. And There is no joints in the waist that turn, but this part up here, interestingly, does turn. So if you want to turn him, he can turn that way. It's just not in the hip, it's more in the upper chest. The joint that does this, it also turns. So, interesting. Legs, let's see here. He can kick to the side about that far. They cannot go back. He hits his butt cheek, does not go back. Again, can kick to the side and can go forward. So he can do a sitting position just fine. Legs do not go back though, which is fine. Let's see, check out these knees. This is interesting, these little pieces here. They seem really loose. Looks like they're only attached. Oh, and they actually come out. So this is attached in that hole there. Interesting. Inside's same way. These are the same way. Let's see, so the knees looks like they got a bottom and a top joint. Very similar to the Bandai Legacy line figures, and that's as far back as it goes. So that's as far back as his knee bends. And again on this side, same thing. Let's see, we've got his foot kind of doesn't really walk backwards. It hits this little piece here, and it's not really going backwards. It goes a little, doesn't really move much. But it rotates like this, so if he wants to break his ankle, you know, he can have Lord Zedd with a broken ankle, you know, so that's something you always want to do, right? But no, honestly, it's for poses, so you can stand him and he can, you know, have his legs bend different ways. He can't go backwards. That's actually more of a problem than I thought it was. Interesting. He cannot bend his legs backwards. So if you're posing him, you can't have one leg forward, one back, because it just doesn't. You can have him full legs forward, but then he's got to like hunch over to balance. Weird. Okay, so he's going to stand up straight when you display him, apparently. But, I mean, you know, he can spread his legs out and he can do different things. So, I think it's pretty cool. So, now we want to look at, oh yeah, in the bottom of the feet, what do they say? Let's see. Copyright Saban Capital Group SCG, Power Rangers LLC, what we've always seen, some sort of a code, and 2018? Did I say 2018? It does. It says 2018. So Hasbro must have been working on this mold since last year. 2018, Hasbro SA, China, and some more codes. Interesting. So yeah, overall, this figure is really cool. So let's go ahead and put a staff in his hand here and see what it looks like. Get these fingers. Thumb. There we go. So he's got a staff in his hand. We can take this thing and let's see, how does this go on? Guess you just kind of work it down. And then just kind of put it around here. I don't know. I'm just throwing this on here. So yeah, so this can go however you want it. So, you know, zzz, you know, he's getting after you. So that's Lord Zedd. You know, you have these extra hands. You've got this one, looks like another bomb holding hand, and you've got this fist. So if he wants to be like, these pesky teenagers, you know, he's got that fist. So yeah, that's Lord Zedd, pretty cool. So now the question that I'm sure most of you guys are wondering, how does this compare to other Lord Zedd figures we've gotten before? Most of mine are in storage, however, I do have this guy. This was the last Lord Zedd figure Bandai ever released. It was from 2014, and this was part of the Legacy line, the 5-inch Legacy line that was in those triangle boxes, you know. So this figure, head turned side to side, it does not go up and down. We have the tubes, but they're painted. They're not actually loose like they are in the show. So Hasbro wins on that. The red is a lighter color red, which, looking at photos from the show, I think the real show Zedd is somewhere in between these two. This is pretty dark. This is kind of bright. I think it's somewhere in between the two. The staff is just like the Hasbro staff in that it's that regular plastic. It's not painted chrome, whereas the body everywhere else is painted chrome. So Hasbro and Bandai did that the same. Obviously, the figure's height is a huge difference. This is a 6-inch figure. This is a 5-inch figure. So that's a big difference right there in the scale. You know, this figure, his leg also cannot go backwards. It hits his butt cheek there as well. Bandai did a really good job with this figure, though. I mean, they painted the back. I mean, it's a very similar paint job, minus the fact that they don't have all those muscles painted that Hasbro did on the larger figure here. And these retailed for the same price. This was $20. This is in stores today for $20. You're getting substantially more from Hasbro than you ever got from Bandai. There's just no way around that. Some other things to note: knees bend. There's only one bend. There's not two. The ankles don't move at all. They can go side to side and forward and backward. That's the same. Hips, chest, it's just one stiff, hard, hollow piece of plastic. This is a piece that bends a lot more. The arms, they can pretty much rotate in the same ways, just less joints, but this is a ball joint that does up and down and side to side pretty well. So this joint is easier to move than these. But these probably look more human, whereas this looks more action figure toy-y-ish, if that's what you want to call that. That's what I'll call it. Elbows bend, just one bend joint, not two. Wrists do turn. An interesting thing here. So look at this Lord Zedd. He painted here, they painted here, and they even painted the fingernails. This Lord Zedd, they painted here, and there's no more paint. This Lord Zedd, they painted here, and then there's no more paint. No fingernails, none of that. Which is more screen accurate? I'm going to put a picture up right here. So, interesting stuff. So, the next thing that folks want to know, after they want to see, how this Lord Zedd compares to previous Lord Zedd figures, is they want to know, how does this thing compare to the other figures that have been released for Power Rangers? Not just Lord Zedd, but also our regular 5-inch basic figure lines from previous years. Obviously, this is going to be a lot better. It's double the price. Just like Bandai's legacy figures were a lot better than the basic figures they released. This figure has pretty much the same size, scale, and articulation as this Lord Zedd. Difference being there's less paint on these generally. The weaponry was rubber, and as you can see, this is a sword, guys. You better fear this sword. It's really scary because, a rubber sword, that's going to scare the villains really well, isn't it? I hated that. These swords bend, and they're so rubbery. Granted, this is not hard plastic, but it's a lot stiffer, and it's straight. This came out of the box like that, and it doesn't matter how much you bend it. Eventually, it'll start bending the other way, but it's never straight. That's always been a problem with these swords. I get it. Safety hazard, choking hazard, stabbing hazard. And if you make it too straight and stiff and hard plastic, kid plays with it, it'll snap, it'll be too brittle. There's a hard medium ground that you want it to be. Hasbro nailed it. And they didn't only nail it on this, but they also nailed it on all of the Beast Morpher figures for the basic line. Those figures nailed it. But yeah, so these weapons were never painted on the basic line before, whereas if you're familiar with the new and improved basic line from Hasbro, the weapons, would you look at that? There is paint on these weapons. Granted, they could be more detailed and more painted. They're painted, and that's a huge upgrade. And also, like this sword, it's straight. This is a straight sword, and it's soft-ish. You can see I'm kind of bending it a little bit. It doesn't snap, it's not brittle, but it's stiff enough, and it's not that rubber that just constantly stays bent. it actually looks like a sword, and it's painted. So that's huge. Anyways, get off my soapbox. So yeah, how does this compare to these? As you can see, they're pretty much the same scale. They're both 6-inch figures. Well, they should be, but actually looking at them now, Lord Zedd's like a foot taller. Well, if they were like real scale, like an inch taller. Interesting. I'm curious how Lord Zedd stacks up to the other Lightning Collection, because from what I've read, they're supposed to be 6 inches, and these are 6 inches. Maybe the Rangers are 6, and the villains are based on how they were in the show comparatively to them. You know, Lord Zedd was a big guy, so that might make sense. Maybe this is 7 inches. Hang on, let me measure this. All right, so I'm back with an actual tape measure. Let's see how tall this Zedd is. I'll put this at the very top of his Z, to the bottom of his foot, and yeah, this guy's 7 inches. If I take away the Z, go to the bottom of the foot, he's about 6.5. So definitely taller than 6 inches. Interesting. I was really expecting this guy to be 6 inches on the nose. So again, maybe the Rangers will be. I have them pre-ordered. So if you want to see the reviews of the Rangers, please hit that subscribe button right now, because I will be coming out with them as soon as I get my hands on them. I've got them pre-ordered, and they should be all on their way. All right, so one last thing I want to take over and show you guys is how does this compare to the Legacy Collection from Bandai. Bandai had been releasing these, big fan hit. How do they compare? These were 6.5 inches tall. And as you can see, looking here, he is about a ½ inch taller, which makes sense. He's 7 inches. You take that away, they're about the same height. So yeah, and the new Hasbro Ranger figures for the Lightning Collection are supposed to be this size, same as a basic of 6 inches. So this guy's going to tower over the other figures. He's a pretty big figure. So that's kind of neat that they're making these scale relevant to how they were in the show. The figures are probably going to be 6 inches, and the villains are going to be, you know, hey, if they do a Pudgy Pig, he'll probably be shorter than the Rangers. Which, by the way, I would love to see a Pudgy Pig, just saying. So yeah, that's my unboxing and quick review of the new Lightning Collection Lord Zedd. If you want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe to this video. I'll be back with more videos such as the Shadow Ranger review for the Lightning Collection, the White Mighty Morphin Ranger, and the Red Dino Charge Ranger. So please, hit subscribe, hit like, and I'll be back with many more videos. See ya.